If I'm a realtor and I send an email and the subject line says, "Are you selling your home soon?" Anyone that opens that, you should be calling.
Welcome back to the show. My name is Remington Ramsey, and today we have Chris Smith, the author of The Conversion Code, on with us today. How you doing, Chris?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
I'm very excited to hear about what it takes to become a best-selling author. You've been working in the space mostly with small business and realtors for many years now. At the height of your speaking, making a couple $100,000 just on the road. But shut that down for mental health reasons, which I appreciate you being willing to share what that looks like. I think that that's a big thing, a big issue that we're dealing with that we probably don't talk about as much as we should, especially within real estate. And interesting timing with, you know, the market being a good indicator of where that's at as well. But let's start with the book, because it had massive success. New York Times bestseller, USA Today bestseller, and you even spoke teaching the conversion code at NYU. Tell us what it's about.
Yeah, it's about stop chasing leads and start attracting clients. That's kind of the premise, is that, you know, inbound marketing is a very powerful tool if you combine it with outbound selling. So I think a lot of people do one or the other. They do a lot of marketing and branding, and they do a bunch of stuff that gets vanity metrics, or they have like a boiler room, right? They have like an inside sales team that smiles and dials and calls forced registration leads that don't even want to get their call. And you kind of have to have a conversion rate of 0.5% is kind of the mecca. And so I looked really closely at what our company was doing at Curaytor. I looked at what some of the top teams that we work with were doing. And it's funny because we actually were having an event and we asked our clients, what do you want to learn while you're in Orlando at this 3-day event? And the number one thing they wanted to learn was lead conversion. Yeah. And this is in 2014, 2015.
Is this real estate or is this small business?
Yeah, this is real estate. We only work with real estate agents at Curaytor. Okay. So we had an event called Excellence, and we polled them, and that was number one by far. And I was sitting there thinking, I have done lead conversion in a past life. I used to work for 2 different billionaires doing inside sales. The most famous one is Lou Pearlman. He discovered NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys. I also worked for Dan Gilbert, who is the founder of Quicken Loans, now Rocket Mortgage. And so I didn't realize that the skills that I had learned in the boiler room were so needed, as far as like the scripts and what to say and when to say it and how to say it and how quickly to call and how many times to call, and you know, the usage of a CRM and putting in notes and getting documents electronically signed by strangers that you'll never meet in person. You know, I went through that and I learned it. So I wrote a book about it, and I had the summer to write the book, and I handed the book in the day before the conference. And then I just taught everything that was in the book during the conference. So it was kind of a two for one. And then it just took off. It was kind of like, oh, they're not, you know, my clients aren't the only one with this problem. The industry really embraced the book. You mentioned some of the accolades and stuff outside of the industry. And whether you're selling solar panels or mortgages or software or magazines, you know, everyone can benefit from the conversion code, because it's the science to sales and marketing. It's something that anyone can do. It's A plus B equals C. It's not theory. And I think a lot of the gurus and a lot of the advice that's out there, even still today, is, you know, trust me on this, versus actually having it been researched and vetted and proven.
You said 0.5% is the mecca. That is what everyone's shooting for in terms of conversion. Is that based on your own database, making calls, making all the touch points, and then converting into a sale within real estate?
Yeah, the average conversion rate for almost every team in the country, even that does a good job, is less than 1%. But the thing is, the ROI is usually still there. So it's kind of like people get caught up on that number being so small, because it's kind of sad. I mean, I think with Curaytor, the most recent information is like we can get 14% of the people to have a conversation. We can get 4 of them to set an appointment, and we can get maybe 1 of them to do a transaction. But yeah, 0.5%, 0.05%, under 1% is success. The key is, the cost of real estate leads, if you're doing forced registration, can be really low. The cost is really just the staff that you have, whether you outsource it, insource it. So the ROI can be tremendous even at that low conversion rate.
So is your argument that realtors should stop doing that and start doing what they learn in the conversion code, or keep doing that and then in addition do what they learn in the conversion code?
Yeah, there's marketing, there's brands, and there's ads. That's the way I break it down into those 3 buckets. If you want the most leads possible, because you have a big team and you have a lot of people that you need to get leads for, you would use ads that would get those leads, and the ads are going to generate the lowest quality lead. Marketing is kind of in the middle. Marketing is not going to generate the most leads, but it's also going to generate better leads. And then anything that comes in through your brand, that they know your brand, they see you, they like you, they trust you, they saw your billboard, they heard your radio ad, they saw your magazine. The brand leads are the best leads, but there's not enough. So I would argue that, you should try to make a focus of all 3 of those things. You should have the boiler room that's smiling and dialing and calling bad leads, if you will, but you shouldn't do that at the sake of doing the other things too.
Sure. Well, you broke your book down into 3 different sections: marketing, technology, and sales. We focus a lot on the marketing, or maybe not enough, actually. When you say marketing, what are the main avenues of marketing that you choose to talk about?
Yeah, all the social media platforms individually. So Instagram versus TikTok versus Twitter versus Facebook versus LinkedIn. I talk about Google Ads and pay-per-click. I talk about SEO.
That's why there's a second edition, though, because you came out with your first in 2015 before some of these were in existence.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Like, I don't even think I mentioned something like Instagram stories in the first book. TikTok was not an app yet. It might have been called Musical.ly. That was the original name. And so this stuff does change really quickly, but the foundational principles are there among each platform. So like with TikTok, you have to have a video that looks like a TikTok, not like an ad. And you have to have your message conveyed in the first 3 seconds, and you have to have a hook or somebody's going to keep scrolling, right? There's sort of X's and O's on each platform. For me personally, I love email marketing. I have an email newsletter called The Chris List that goes out to tens of thousands of people. And I do it every Tuesday at 2. I think that's a big opportunity for a lot of people that'll listen to this is, they're not doing any email marketing, or maybe they just do emails when they have a listing. But, when I consult for companies, it's like, listen, you can't do everything. Like, we need to pick and choose. I have an exercise I do with my kids. I heard you mention that you have 2 small kids. My kids are not small anymore. They're 14 and 16. Terrible ages, by the way, tough ages. But
I can confirm. I was that age. I can confirm.
Yeah, exactly. We have a technique called keep, trash, or donate. And we go through their room, and every single item in their room is going to be in one of those 3 buckets. We're going to keep it, we're going to throw in the garbage, or we're going to donate it. And I think that you have to make those choices. If you're going to do Facebook ads and Instagram, you probably don't have enough time left or enough capacity to also do Twitter and LinkedIn. Or if you love TikTok and you're finding that that's the new cool place to be and you're getting traction there, you may not be able to continue running Facebook ads in addition to that. There's only so much time and money that you can spend on each platform.
That's interesting. And I know there's some companies that exist solely to have everything in one place so that you can make one post and it goes out to all the mediums. But to your point, they don't speak the same language. If you post the same, even on Instagram and Facebook, it's a completely different technique. And since they're owned by, the same entity, when you can click a button that says also post to Instagram, that's almost hurting, in my opinion, your ability to grow on the other platform.
Yeah, you have much better traction when you respect the platform that you're on.
Right.
So like on Facebook, some of the best stuff that I do is like longer written posts. it's a lot of words versus Instagram where it's all about the graphic or the video and usually a very short caption. It's not a lot of words.
Right.
So LinkedIn, longer posts do really well there. They do better than images. TikTok is obviously 100% videos. So each place that you are living, and I think that's a good lesson for the audience, is respect the platform that you're on. I think that's one of the things that I've challenged my company to do is, real estate agents love to syndicate their listings, right? You put it in the MLS and it goes everywhere. Well, that's not the right approach with social. It's not, set it and forget it and hope it goes everywhere and cross your fingers. Because for the people that do it that way, I always ask them, how's that going? And it's usually not going real well.
We're just doing it because everyone else does it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm interested in your emailing technique because I feel like emailing. So like I would be considered a vendor. I wouldn't be considered. I'm not a realtor. I would be considered someone who is calling on realtors. So my audience is a little different, but I feel like we're all speaking the same language and playing the same game. Just if you're talking about sending out a newsletter to your database to remind them that you're a realtor, to remind them that you're there to buy, sell, or refer. How do you send consistent enough emails to do that, entertaining enough emails so that you're not only do they delete the emails, but my fear is you send one email and they're annoyed and now they're gone forever. What kind of techniques do you teach to keep that from happening?
Yeah, well, one thing I would say is if you're going to be in the email marketing game, you're going to get unsubscribes. That's just part of the game. Just like people unfollow your Facebook page or they hide your post or something like that, especially once you have a certain scale. But the way I've approached it is I like my emails to be amazing and irresistible, and they're purely providing value. So what I did is I came up with an acronym for Chris. C is content, H is how to, R is research, I is inspiration, S is stats. And so it's basically 5 small sections. And I think any real estate agent could do that. It could be local restaurants. It could be things to do this weekend. It could be the most expensive listings on Zillow right now in our area. There's a way to kind of do it where it's entertaining. And that's kind of like Gary Vee would call a jab, right? You're jabbing. Right. And then what I do is there's areas in the newsletter where I can mention stuff. Like there's an opening blurb before it gets into the letters. And I can mention stuff in that opening blurb. Hey, by the way, I'm doing a workshop next week. If you're interested, here's a link. I can do stuff at the beginning, at the very end. There's a couple little graphics within the newsletter that I use. I feel like
that's interesting too, because like the crafting of how it looks, like I mean, I always make it fun of emails that look like it came from Sears, because or Lowe's, it looks like the front of a website. Like I don't know who's reading those and why they can continue sending those, but like what one tactic that I've seen most effective in our own email marketing is making it almost look like a text message, short. Incomplete sentences, not using the entire body of it like that. Have you seen like in the last 10 years of the change, like what's been the biggest change in the dynamic of what gets read and what doesn't get read?
Yeah, you're onto something there. So plain text emails compared to HTML, highly stylized emails actually do perform better.
Yeah.
There's a time and place for both. Like in the Chris list, we do have one kind of GIF or one graphic per letter, but it doesn't look like a newsletter template. It's very much a modern approach to that. One of the emails that's in my book is called the 9-word email. You just made me think of that. And the subject line is quick question. And the email is, are you still buying a home soon? ? And that's the whole thing. So the SMSification of emails is a very real thing. Every single email doesn't need to be 500 words, 1,000 words.
I will tell you, that I love that 9-word email. Quick question. I will tell you a cheat code in my own business that has been phenomenal. I'm not sure how long it'll work. And if everyone listening to this podcast does it, it might not work much longer.
Yeah.
But did you get my last email? in the subject line of the email. Did you get my last email? And then in the body, just checking, let me know if not, something to that effect. Yeah. Not only does that cut through sometimes the firewall, what's getting blocked, but they get it. And then they actually do check. And a lot of times it will have gone to spam or something to that effect. And that's been effective for not just that one email, but future emails too, because now they're looking for it.
Yeah. And one of the things that's critical there that people really should pay attention to is the subject line, because the subject line of an email is really critical in discovering who you should call. So think of email and phone working together. So if I'm a realtor and I send an email and the subject line says, "Are you selling your home soon?" Anyone that opens that, you should be calling.
Yeah, I would say.
So you can almost create hand raisers. And that's where we have a lot of success. When we try to set appointments for agents, we're not just blindly dialing through the database.
Right.
We're warming up the list through email marketing and then pounding the phones based on the opens of those emails.
What I love about this show is we get in the weeds, and I really want to show people exactly what is being effective right now. So, we've done a great job of explaining what the content is. I love your acronym. I love that you're constantly focusing on creating content that puts them back to Chris. I think there's a lot to learn from that. When it comes to emails specifically, what is the frequency that you have found? Because I love what you said is, I love my emails to be irresistible. That's what you said. That's probably not the first time you said that, but I love that. And I'm thinking of my own emails. If I look at the last 10 emails I sent to my database, can I say that about every single one of them? The answer is absolutely not. There's definitely some a handful of this is just the normal email we do to remind them to come to our event each month. Sure. And there's a lesson there. But what is the frequency if you're doing the jab, right hook, or following this acronym? How often are you sending an email out?
Yeah, I think people don't send often enough in most cases. I think that most real estate agents, if they're sending regularly, they do a monthly email, one a month. And once a month is just not enough. I would say every other week or every week is ideal. I do every Tuesday at 2:00, so people can, they know it's coming. They know what time it's coming. It can be hard to write emails every week, but honestly, with ChatGPT and some of the AI tools that can help you write those emails, it's not as hard as you think. Yeah. And once you start doing it and you see the open rate and the click-through rate and people are replying, telling you, "Thank you so much. I love your emails. Keep sending them." That's really where you want to be. And then, so what I do is, on Thursdays, that's when I would send a sales email. Yeah. So, and I don't do it every Thursday, but if we got a workshop coming up for the conversion club and it's next week and it's coming up, Tuesday's always the Chris list. And then I can send Wednesday or Thursday, I can send the right hook that's a little bit more salesy. So if I'm a realtor, having that weekly email newsletter going out consistently gives you the ability to send another email that same week. I think daily is unrealistic and people don't want a daily email unless it's from a news company. And
personally, I don't want to do that often. I mean, I wouldn't enjoy that. I think once or twice a week is totally doable. And if you're making it fun, something you would read, I think that's totally something you can pull off.
Exactly.
You mentioned working for 2 billionaires. And I'm curious, when you were working for them, did you spend much time with them? Did you actually get to see how they interact in their daily lives?
Very little. Very little time. It's almost like they're like a legend walking around the hallways. But I did get a chance to spend time with Dan Gilbert. Yeah. And we did a new mortgage officer powwow up in Michigan. And he came in and taught a class. And he basically taught us this lesson about how humans communicate and how humans communicate when the goal is to elicit an emotional response. And of course, people buy off of emotion and you have to get people excited enough to want to buy. And it breaks down where 55% of human communication is body language.
Yeah.
And only 7% is words. The rest, 38% is tone. So
yeah,
he was
I can tell you firsthand interaction with my wife this morning. That is correct.
Yes, exactly. She doesn't need to say anything and she's mad. Right. Yeah. And then you could say, hey, honey, versus hey, honey.
Yeah.
Like, it can be very different.
I love those memes that says that it's like a picture, a screenshot of a wife texting her husband. And she goes, are you okay? The way you put your shoes on this morning was very angry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And actually, I lived in LA and tried to get into acting for a while. And that is what you do. You have an energy and a presence that the words come through. So all Dan Gilbert wanted us to realize was that you're on the phone. No one's going to see you. So the tone of your voice is critical. And that's where like I have a good tone, a natural tone. Not everybody does. A lot of people, they sound real monotone. Like, hi, is Chris there?
Yeah.
So that was his one lesson. Lou Pearlman's company, his sales coach was the best sales coach I've ever had. His name was David, and he was a living legend. He actually went to jail in the 80s for telemarketing fraud.
Wow.
So he like really was in the trenches on phone sales. Like and I met him at the point where he was sort of on the back end of that, and he was at the end of his career. He wasn't doing anything shady anymore. But he taught a lesson where it was like, sales is simple. Your job is to get people more excited than the cost during the time that you have their attention. And he does get a little graph. So it's like you have a line with which you have to get them above, and then you have to close when they're above that line. Yeah. And it just made perfect sense to me. He would come in every morning and do like a 15-minute sales lesson. And a lot of them stuck, and a lot of them I attribute in the book.
That's really fascinating, because I think that what turned a lot of people off from that, telesalesman type mentality is just that very thing that you said, like the energy, the excitement. But I don't think that principle you just shared changes. I think the way you get people excited changes, because before it was almost like, jokingly, fake excitement around this product that doesn't do anything to change your life. But, my energy, like, can I transfer that? But nowadays, I think what's interesting about realtors in general is there's so many different, every personality that you can have in a person, you can find that in a realtor, because people want to work with someone they know, like, and trust. And there is a realtor out there for every single person, assuming that they're good at their job, assuming they know how to sell a home and do the paperwork the right way and represent you well. But I mean, I'll tell you that, like, even in my own business, we've seen where, like, I've tried to close a company, and for whatever reason, that's just not we don't vibe that well. And someone comes in their first week and closes that company. They've either got that, that connection there. They just vibe better with them. And that's why I think there's so much business to go around. There's never a time where I should get discouraged about the type of person that's buying or selling a home.
Yeah. And also that kind of idea, like when you're doing a mortgage, like at Quicken Loans, it's a one call close. Yeah. It's not this long drawn out relationship over time. It's very mechanical. What's your rate? What's your payment? If we can get you a lower rate and a lower payment, would you move forward? Okay, cool. What's your social, right? Yep. Like, what's your credit card number for the appraisal? Yeah. And so all of that kind of excitement higher than the cost happens on one call. With a real estate agent, it actually could be years.
Multiple calls.
Yeah. I mean, especially because the time of transaction, especially right now with the market the way it is, you may have a buyer that you're working with for 12 months. And so getting them more excited than the cost of working with you, that graph looks a lot different.
You know what, though? I think where a lot of companies and teams miss the mark is they think that front end, that salesman, the business owner, whoever's landing the deal is the most important part. And then once they get into the back end where they're doing all the data entry and all that kind of stuff, like getting life insurance, like the guy that called me to do the interview on like my health, basically asking all those questions. That's the most boring job. That's the most boring. You have to do it, obviously.
Yeah.
And this guy was hilarious. And to be honest, like it made my experience with that company, when I think about them, I'm not just thinking about the salesman or the business owner. I'm thinking about every single person that's touching that company. I think the companies that get it are hiring and training every single person to realize that they are a reflection of that front end.
That's right. Customer experience.
Yes. So you talk about technology midway through your book. What have you specifically as it pertains to the conversion code seen about technology in the last couple of years that's most important to be aware of?
Yeah, I would say the thing that comes to mind is texting versus email and calling only. Texting should be, land, sea, and air. If you're making an attack, it should be email, phone, and text. And there's some really good stuff where when a lead comes in, assuming you have their phone number, you can do an automated text message just like you could do an automated email.
Yeah.
But with text messages, they have such a high open and reply rate.
Yeah.
So like if you get a lead from Zillow and it gets a text that says, "Hey, I just got your information from Zillow. Is now a good time to talk?" ? Like you can automate that and get a ton of people to say yes or no later. Today's better. So the open rate and the reply rate on text messages is through the roof. And then what I'm also starting to see is mass texting. So the way you have an email list, you have a text message list, but it's the same thing. It's like if all you do is spam your text message subscribers, they're going to reply stop and they're going to be gone and you're going to lose them. So it becomes tricky. How do you provide value through SMS?
Yeah.
What are the jabs that work there and versus what are the jabs that work in email? Right. And it's much, much shorter.
I don't know about conversion, like specifically conversion. You're more of the expert there, but I will tell you, working your current database, what I've seen, 5-7 years ago, video email became a lot bigger for our business. Like we just noticed like way more people watching a short 1-minute video that could have done the exact same thing that I could have typed out, but now it's just different and new and there's exit links and all that. But now what I found is like, if I'm trying to reach someone in my small database, we work with 50 or 60 companies at a time as clients. So it's not as big as most databases, but I'm struggling to get a hold of them. One of the best ways to get a response is a video text because that's hard to ignore. Now, maybe we'll get to the point again, like 10 years from now, where like everyone's doing that. So you just start ignoring that too. And we're going to have to find a new way to get people's attention. But the truth that what's interesting, what's fascinating about this is if you're doing this the right way, you're solving a problem for people. They need this problem solved and you're trying to get a hold of them for their benefit. And yet still sometimes they're unable to be reached. And so all these different platforms are helping us really help them is the way I look at it.
Yeah. Coming from contribution.
What's the best way that we can reach you and learn more about what you're into? I know you run a marketing company, Curaytor.com. You're also running the Conversion Club, play off of your book, which is a coaching group. Who's that appropriate for?
Well, it's for people that want a master's degree. So, you can Google questions about Instagram. You can maybe go to a webinar that a vendor puts on, but there's very few places where you get like a 2 to 3 hour deep dive, like an intensive training. So this is for people that they want to be the best at marketing and the best at sales, and they're really committed to their education. I've learned, and I sell technology, so I can't bash it too much, but in my experience, real estate agents, they put more time and effort into tools than they do into teaching. And so I think if you think of the ROI of knowledge is really the best ROI you can get. It's $49 per month. It's 1 3-hour workshop per month. We don't overpromise, we overdeliver. That would be how I'd explain that. And as far as getting in touch, like theconversioncode.com is a great place to go. Theconversioncode.com that has links to buy the book, that has my information, some of the products and services that I offer.
On a future podcast, Chris, I'd love to learn what it takes to be a national best-selling author and speak like that. We didn't get into that, but a lot of really great conversation. Love the conversation around email marketing. We haven't really talked about that on this podcast a lot, and you brought up a really interesting point that's a huge win for businesses. The author of The Conversion Code, Chris Smith, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.